performance, and I've had one major challenge that has always arisen. People that look good, they sound good, they're of great family backgrounds, but they're accomplishing very little, or they're not achieved. And I always wonder what's going on with them. And I've studied many different things to try to figure out what holds people back. And I came upon a story that I think perfectly exemplifies what has happened to most people. Way, way long ago in a far-off land, there was a master of wisdom and his apprentice that were walking through a valley. They came upon a small, meager house, a little shack, sitting on a meager piece of farmland. The master said, "Apprentice, go knock on that door and ask those people to share some food with us." The apprentice said, "Well, master, we have plenty of food of our own. Why would we need to ask of them?" And he said, I'm the master, you're the apprentice, just do as I say." So the apprentice went over there and he knocked on the little door. The door opened, and a frail man in torn, tattered clothes opened up the door, and he could see behind the guy, and there was a wife and 7 little children, dirty and scouring around in the back. And the little man said, "How may I help you?" And the apprentice said, "Well, my master and I are travelers through this valley, and we've come to ask if you have any food that you can spare and share with us." And the man said, "We have very little, as you can see, but what little I have, I will share. We're just getting by, but we do have one little blessing in our life. The blessing is a little cow. She's not much, but she produces just enough milk for us to drink. We make a little bit of cheese that we sell in the market, and it's just enough to get us by. Let me go get you some food." Left, came back with a little piece of cheese and a crust of bread. And the apprentice said, "Thank you so much for your kindness. I very much appreciate it." He went back and shared with the master what he had seen. And the master was grateful for the person's kindness, but he was also sorrowed for their situation. He said, "Before we leave this land, there's one more task I must ask of you." And the apprentice said, "Whatever you say, master." He said, "I want you to go back to that little shack, and I want you to bring me back their little cow." The apprentice didn't understand why, but he knew his master to be merciful. So he went and did as he said. "Well, now here I've got the little cow, master. What do you want me to do with it?" And the master said, "See those cliffs? Bring her up to the highest one and push her off." "But master," "Do as I say." And the person did it. The apprentice brought the cow up, pushed her off, and they went around on their way. For years and years into the future, the apprentice grew in wisdom himself and always wondered what happened and became of that poor family. The pain of guilt was all over him, and he had to go back and apologize and see for himself what became of that family. So he journeyed back to that little shack on that meager piece of farmland. And when he arrived, he was disappointed and shocked, but the shack was gone. In its place was a big estate, a fenced-in villa, and he knew that that little family got driven off their land. So he had to go find out, and he knocked on this big grand door. And as he did, a servant answered and said, "How might I be of help to you?" He said, "I need the master of the house, please." This wealthy, well-dressed man walked on up and said, "How might I be of service to you?" The apprentice said, "My master and I had walked through this valley many years ago, and there was a little shack with a poor little family here. And I wondered what happened to that little family." And the wealthy man was perplexed and said, "Well, I don't understand what you're talking about. My family has lived on this land for 3 generations. And the apprentice said, "I don't understand. There used to be a small shack here and a poor family and 7 kids. And the wealthy man said, "Oh, I know what you're talking about. That was me. That was my family. Way long time ago, we were just getting by in our life. We had nothing except a little cow that we depended on that just made us enough to get by. We settled for that little cow, and we lived on what little meager things that cow could provide until one day that cow wandered off and fell off a cliff." And the apprentice was like, "Oh my goodness." And he said, you know, it was the greatest blessing of our life. We thought we'd be destitute, but it was until that moment that we weren't even harnessing our God-given resources and the things that we were able to do. We never even searched out our possibilities. So it wasn't until we were absolutely at the bottom, till we hit rock bottom and we were destitute, that we started to look inside of ourselves to see what we could make. And we worked even harder, and we used our minds and our bodies, and we came up with ideas to make money and to survive. And it was only at that point that we were able to find out what we were really made of. And at that point, we became very successful. It's a matter of fact, not only do I have this big mansion and villa, but so do each and every one of my children, who are all now grown and very successful on their own. See, the moral of the story, everybody, was that sometimes we have to not settle anymore and possibly kill what we would call the proverbial little cow in our lives. So you have to ask yourself, what's your little cow? Is your little cow that job that you're not happy with, that's providing you just enough income to get by? Is it that bad relationship that's holding you back? Are you waiting for maybe the government to take care of you and give you just enough to get by and survive on? Are you settling in your life? That story is a great reason not to settle. You've got to kill your little cow, and you have to go for it. Good luck, and we'll see you at the top.